What's up, guys? Just wanted to do a little discussion video today talking about knife value. I know this is something that comes up quite a bit, and it's honestly a pretty subjective subject because, value can be different for different people. One person may think something is high value and another person may think that something is low value. But I think it'd be interesting to have a little discussion here with a couple of knives that I recently got in, and kind of got my brain thinking about, for myself personally, whether or not certain knives are worth the price. Are you getting what you pay for? Are you getting more than what you're paying for, or less, or is it about even? So I thought we'd do just a little discussion here, talking about a couple of those things. And honestly, this video was kind of spurred by this Hinderer that I recently got in here for sharpening service. This is a XM18 3.5 with the Bowie blade, as you guys can see here. Very attractive Bowie blade design here. Went ahead and put my edge on this knife, but that's not really what this video is about. But I'll go ahead and just show you guys real quick. Did kind of a semi-convex edge on this knife here, which is the most of the secondary bevel is pretty much flat, but slightly convex the edge there, as per my customer's request. So what do we have here, guys? This is a titanium frame lock knife, made in USA, S35 VN steel, stonewash blade. Has a G10 handle scale on the presentation side here, and just standard titanium here on the lock bar side. This knife has some attractive hardware, some anodized hardware. These are kind of in a bronze coloration, which are nice to add a little something else to the appearance of the knife. Has a little lock bar stabilizer here that's hiding behind the pocket clip. And I guess, this is only the second Hinderer knife that I've had in, or in my hands, I guess I should say, for service and, evaluation on my part. And the first I had was an XM24. And I have to say that, I gave that knife a pretty glowing review. That was a very impressive knife. Just its size and construction and, its action, the way it operated. Overall, I was very impressed with that knife. And I don't know if kind of the newness of the Hinderer knives are kind of wearing off on me, because I've seen these before, or if, maybe this particular model, for whatever reason, I'm just not quite as enchanted with. But honestly, when I got this knife in, guys, I was kind of like, it's not quite as good as I remember it being. It's not the rosy vision that I once had of Hinderer knives. Now, this is a great knife, guys. Don't get me wrong. It's a very, very well-made knife. All the materials are very high quality. But just in terms of the way this knife operates and the feel, it kind of, left me wanting a little bit more, considering the about $450 price tag on this knife, which is a big chunk of change, guys. $450. I mean, you can get some pretty nice, mid-techs or even some custom knives for that amount of money. So, kind of got me to thinking, or to look again at Hinderer knives and kind of talk about the question of value and what are you getting for your $450. And so I thought that'd just be kind of an interesting discussion. And again, this goes back to a subjective idea of value, because value is different for everyone, as I say. But I try to keep my videos and reviews pretty objective, and kind of look at the sum of the parts, and and see if, in my mind, if the price that they're selling these knives for is justified. Are there better options out there for your money if you're looking for value? So just in particular, guys, this knife, like I said, it's a good knife. The lock bar on this knife is kind of stiff. You know, compared to the 24 that I had, you have to really kind of get your thumb in there and crank it over, and not quite as easy as the other one I had. And honestly, I find this jimping here on the frame lock to be a little fatiguing on your thumb over time. You know, I was going to bed last night and I was playing with this knife, and you know, I was like, man, my thumb hurts. Why does my thumb hurt? And then I realized, you know, I've been opening and closing this knife, you know, probably 40, 50 times, and for whatever reason, this one's stiff, guys. You really have to go in there, push it pretty hard to get that to disengage there. And I don't know, it's almost like the detent ball on this particular knife is a little, maybe it sticks out a little too far or something. You have to really crank that over, you know, to get the blade to disengage on this particular knife. And, you know, something else I'll just quickly mention. So this is a flipper knife design, and I know there's the discussion out there, you know, some people say Hinderer knives, they don't flip, blah, 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 you know. And, you know, this knife does flip, but you have to use some wrist with it. You know, if you're just doing it like this, you're not gonna get this knife to flip open by itself, unless you, I don't know, do something extremely weird to get this knife to flip out. If I'm doing this wrong, I don't know, but maybe you can do it like that. Let me see here. Maybe I found a new technique as I'm making this video. Let me try that again. I don't know. It's not intuitive, guys. I don't know if there's a secret way to flip these knives open, but if I put some pressure there and let me see. I don't know. Now my finger's hurting. You can see the amount of pressure I'm putting on that flipper tab there. You can see my finger starting to indent. But anyways, to get these to flip, you have to use some wrist with them. Maybe that's the way they were designed. I'm not sure. I'm not a big aficionado on flipping knives, but it takes some effort. So going back to this value subject here that we were talking about, I just so happened to get this knife in at the same time that I had this Hinderer, and this really got the wheels turning for me. So this is the ZT0095 BW, also a flipper knife. And I have to say, guys, in terms of flipping function, this ZT kicks the crap out of that Hinderer. There's no two ways about it, guys. As a flipping design, this knife is superior. It just is. As a flipper, this ZT knife is just, in its flipping mechanics, is a superior flipping knife to the Hinderer. It's just the way it is. You can't argue it. It's physics. It's the way it was engineered. I know some people may not like that, but it is what it is. You know, I'm a believer in providing truth and honesty. You know, take it or leave it. So, furthermore, so let's talk about this knife a little bit more. ZT here. This is also a titanium handled knife. Of course, when I make a video, there has to be an ambulance that comes by here, guys. Let me just wait a second for that to pass. I'll tell you the struggles of making YouTube videos. It's real, guys. It's real. So anyways, ZT0095 BW, about 3.6 inch blade, titanium handle scales, titanium frame lock, I should also say. Has an insert here, steel insert there. You know, in case that wears out over time, you can replace that. We have S35 VN steel, which is exactly the same as our Hinderer over there. And you can see here, this knife has some attractive kind of stylized pivot hardware, which you can see there. And on the back here, it's just, kind of a plain black screw, which is fine. It's functional. Let's take a look here at these knives side by side. A little bit closer. So as you can see, the pocket clips on these knives are very similar. I didn't even realize that until I got these knives out and put them side by side. Very similar pocket clip design. Frame lock design there is also very similar. If you look at these two knives in terms of blade length, the ZT dwarfs this Hinderer, guys. In terms of edge here and cutting and all that stuff, this is a much larger knife. Overall, the ZT feels very good in hand. This handle shape is very comfortable. Fits in very nicely. The overall fit and finish on this knife, guys, is very nice. It kind of has this distressed look, I guess you could say, where some of the corners and the high spots on this knife have been kind of worn a little bit to show a little bit of use, I guess, as it comes from the factory. And I like it. I think it looks kind of cool. It's a nice design. Blade shape on this knife is nice. Kind of a sweeping belly. It's almost entirely belly, which also has a very nice fine tip here for piercing cuts. The lockup on this knife is very solid, no play. And I have to say the lock bar on this knife is very easy to disengage. Very easy. Takes very little effort, doesn't hurt my thumb or nothing. Flips out very easily, and action on this knife is very smooth. Very smooth. Centering is also just about perfect. The Hinderer knife here, guys, is also very smooth. This rides on nylon washers. Very smooth also. It comes out, just takes a little bit of a wrist flick there, which, it's not a huge problem. It's just a little bit different. Very... Let me take a look at the centering here on this knife also, which is just about perfect. So, let me just go ahead and I guess wrap this up, guys. And I'll leave some of the thinking to you guys on your part. But if I was in the market for a flipping knife, where would I put my money? We have a lot of expenses these days competing for our dollars, and a lot of us have families and kids and dogs and a lot of other interests, cars, guns, whatever it is. Where would I personally put my money? And personally, talking about these two knives, the Hinderer is a hard sell. It's a hard sell. This is a $200 knife, the ZT. 200, maybe 210. This Hinderer Bowie, $450. More than twice the price. Same steel, same handle materials, same lock, pretty much the same pocket clip. Both are made in the USA. Both flipping designs. It's gets you to start thinking about what are you paying for in these more expensive knives. And as I'm sure a lot of you guys probably already know, with these higher end knives, you're kind of paying for the provenance. You're paying for the name. Is this little horse logo, worth another $250? I don't know, guys. I'm gonna say no. Not for me. I will say though that the blade thickness on this Hinderer is much thicker. It's a heavier duty knife. But then again, if you really need a super heavy duty folding knife, just get a fixed blade, man. I mean, who what are you guys doing with your knives that you need, you know, like almost a 1/4 inch of steel? And I can see the design idea behind this Hinderer knife. If you look at it, it gets very thick towards the tip. You know this. Let me see if I can get this to focus here, guys. That will show you. My lighting's a little off today. Sorry about that. But this knife gets very thick towards the tip. I think you can see how the edge bevel gets a little bit broader there towards the tip. If I can bring this in, if I can get a focus here. There we go. So, you know, these knives appeal to people that perhaps like to use knives for different tasks than cutting. You know, I view knives as a cutting tool, something I want to cut things with. I don't see a knife as a pry bar. It's, you know, I don't open wooden pallets and crazy stuff. I'm not stabbing my knives into trees and trying to stand on them and things. You know, a knife is a cutting tool. It's a slicing tool. If you need something to pry with, use a pry bar, you know. Use a cheap flathead screwdriver, you know. I mean, probably a lot of you guys have these things around. It's don't use your expensive knives to pry with. So, you know, it's just these overbuilt, heavy, thick frame lock knives. I just don't really kind of get the total idea behind them. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a cool knife, I like it, I appreciate Rick Hinderer and his company, and, you know, he's a cool guy and makes neat knives, but, I don't know, I feel like you just have all these macho guys that, oh, you know, I need tough, heavy knife, you know, makes me manly, makes me feel better about myself, and you just don't need this much overbuiltness, you know, for a folding pocket knife, guys. Because let's face it, I know 90% of you guys out there, you use these for opening the boxes you get from Amazon, you open your mail with it, and that's about it. Because I get a lot of knives from a lot of people for sharpening, and I have to say, the only people that I see who really use their knives, you know, are people who work outside pretty much every day. I do a lot of knives for, you know, farmers and things like that. And I have to say, those people are about the hardest I've ever seen on their knives. You know, they come to me packed full of dirt, and there's, you know, bits of animal feed and stuff inside of these knives, and the edges are chipped up, and they're dirty, and they're scratched, and they really use their knives, you know. And to date, I don't think any of my customers who work in that setting, none of them have sent me a Hinderer knife, and none of them have told me that their other knives have really failed them, you know. So I don't know. These overbuilt knives, guys, makes some guys out there feel more tough or manly or something. So for most people, I really don't think they're of great utility. So, you know, even ZT knives, their slogan is, you know, what, overbuilt in the USA or something, proudly overbuilt, and you know, this knife isn't nearly the thickness of this Hinderer knife, guys. And I have no doubt in my mind these two knives would perform pretty much, well, let me rephrase that. There's nothing that, well, sorry, let me say that again. My thoughts are getting muddled here. This ZT knife has the same cutting performance, if not better cutting performance, than this Hinderer does. This knife is much thinner, all the way out to the tip, and the thin blade just cuts better. Now, if you look at the tip of this knife, it is kind of thin, it is kind of delicate. It's not really something to be prying with, but then again, you know, knife isn't a prying tool compared to a Hinderer knife here. So I don't know. I'm starting to ramble, guys. This video is approaching 20 minutes, but again, I like Hinderer knives. I think they're cool. I think they're well made. But just, you know, from a value perspective, in my personal evaluation, they're just a really hard sell when you compare them to something like this ZT knife, which is essentially the same materials, for about half the price. So there you go, guys. Just a little discussion for this Friday afternoon. If you guys have some comments or opinions, please feel free to share those. But as always, keep your comments civil and subjective. If you have facts and data to back up your claims or opinions, that's great. But if you're just shooting your mouth off, that's not welcomed in the comments. So please be civil. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you guys soon.